Good morning, everyone. Good morning to my fellow students here in the room. Good morning to those of you who are joining us online. Welcome to our Sunday morning class with Guy Finley. If you're new online, our agenda for our Sunday morning, our Sunday morning classes is that Guy will present about a 60-minute talk on the topic he's chosen for today.
Start again, please.
Sure.
You should be good now.
Good morning. Begin again. That is indeed a foundational principle in our work. Begin again. So, welcome. Our class today, as I was saying, we have an opportunity to listen to a talk by Guy. It'll take about 60 minutes. And then when he's through, we'll take a short break and then come back and have a second opportunity and privilege, and that is to engage in a discussion with Guy, to have an open question and answer period where we can together explore what Guy has presented to us and try to understand it a little bit deeper. So those of you online, you're invited to participate in the discussion, as are the students in the room, and we look forward to that. And our session will last about 90 minutes or so, and so we hope you can stay for the entire session. Before we continue, and before I read the key lesson, just a reminder to the students in the room, if you have a cell phone, please do just check to make sure you've turned it off. And I think we're ready to go. Here's our topic this morning. Cross the river of dreams and into a higher order of consciousness. And here is our key lesson. Those who live in dreams never realize how deep runs the temptation to dwell in them. Only those who have had a moment in the sun, who've glimpsed by its light what is real and what is not, understand something of the nature of the shadows in which they live, as well as how easy it is to forget that all of them are unreal.
Read it one more time, please.
Those who live in dreams never realize how deep runs the temptation to dwell in them. Only those who have had a moment in the sun, who've glimpsed by its light what is real and what is not, understand something of the nature of the shadows in which they live, as well as how easy it is to forget that all of them are unreal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a deep and thoughtful look at something that essentially sits at the very source of all of human suffering. And we'll look at it from a number of angles together. I've written 2 or 3 key lessons, special writing, all of which will further our examination of the material, and all of which is intended to bring about in you one result, meaning one understanding that you begin to act from, so that you as a human being can begin this very unique journey that so few even realize exists, let alone those who will struggle through their life to make the possibility of another order of being their own. When I was a boy, my father used to always start his stories like that. When I was your age, son, I shoveled coal for 14 hours, I lifted 72 mattresses, and then I went to school. Yeah, apparently my father sold mattresses. I have no idea. You know, he could have been a drug or a drink that was talking. There's no telling. But this is a true story. When I was a boy, I had a recurring dream. And the recurring dream that I had as a boy was that I was placed in front of this mountain of pebbles, and that I was told I was to move that mountain pebble by pebble to someplace else. Haunted me. Because it's pretty, you look at like 3 gazillion pebbles, how much time is there in your life, not alone spending your whole life moving pebbles? So do you understand the torment of my life when I was a boy? And then one day, very much by the grace of whatever it is that probably put that dream in my consciousness, I realized the solution to the problem. And it wasn't to get a dumpster or a large tractor or hire people. You know what the solution to that bad dream was? To realize it was a dream. The last thing that happens to someone who looks at a dream, identifies with it for whatever reasons their essence does, and then believes they have to toil their entire existence to live out and somehow solve a dream that they don't even know is a dream, let alone the torment that creates the desire to escape the dream, and in the very effort to escape the dream, you live it. You and I, we live in a world, without knowing it, that is the size of our understanding. Something I've told you before, but I'm going to touch on it a little more deeply. What does it mean that we live in a world the size of our understanding? It means that where we are and what we see and experience, moment to moment, is determined by how that understanding sees the moment. We think the understanding that sees the moment is understanding. But understanding is a momentary relationship with the consciousness in which that understanding lives, and the understanding that is supposed to help that consciousness realize, by the nature of its limitation, that there's more to see, there's more to understand. But in a moment where we look at something that's challenging to our understanding, all we know is one of 2 things, a binary reaction. I must get in there and fight to change what I see, or I must somehow rise above my own understanding, failing to realize the point of this comment. We never suspect that it is the nature of the seer itself that is the source of our pain. That's the last thing that dawns on us. Just as I said, the nature of the dreamer doesn't know that he or she struggles with a dream. We do not know that the nature of the seer, who I am in that moment when I look out in the world and see you, this, that, or them as a problem, that the seer itself is the problem and the source of my suffering. And why don't I suspect that? Because the seer of the problem then becomes the seer of the solution to the problem. And they are seamlessly connected, aren't they? So that I never doubt that the reason I'm suffering is because of the reality of what I see. Instead, what I see is the reality of me who's suffering this, and then I'm so grateful for something that shows me how to escape that suffering that wouldn't exist outside of the level of that consciousness involved in that condition in the moment. Do you see it with me? This is why all true teachings, including this one, but I will throw in here that I do not consider myself a teacher, and you mustn't. All true teachings speak of the same thing. Throughout time, the requirement for a new mind, the requirement for a new level of understanding that as an individual blossoms, opens up, like I spoke of yesterday, I think was Inside Timer. As that man or woman flowers, they're not flowering into something that didn't exist before. They're flowering into an understanding that was there in the bud of this consciousness, that as that consciousness is awakened to the content of itself and how it can act against itself, suddenly begins to let go and allow something that was there all along to be revealed. And that's the understanding that's already in the understanding. the wisdom that is in the knowledge. The knowledge isn't wisdom. But when knowledge is expired as it must be, as a path to the perfection of oneself, in the expiration of that knowledge and the self identified with it, lo and behold, a new man is born. A new woman comes out of that conception. This has been spoken of for endlessly, that we, as we are presently, which is whether we understand it or not, fallen, must actualize this new understanding, these new ideas that when we hear them, surely you know that, you wouldn't be joining me. I hear a new idea and I recognize it. Now, how can I recognize a new idea unless it's already a part, extant in my consciousness prior to that moment? So suddenly, by the grace of truth, I'm reconnected. And I'm reconnected with something that waits like the kernel of corn inside for something to stir it so that out of it can come a new relationship born out of a new body that automatically has a new relationship with its environment. Everybody following me? This is why that old prayer from the, from the unreal lead us to the real, from the darkness lead us to the light, from death lead us to immortality. In those three minute phrases, that this idea, darkness lead me into the light, unreal to what is real, automatically you see, however 5,000, 10,000 years ago, whenever that was first formulated by somebody trying to help men and women understand the nature of the path, you see Plato's allegory of the caves. They were living in a cave in the darkness where a light behind them cast shadows on a wall, and where everyone looking at all the shadows, living out their actions, took the shadows to be the reality of themselves. And everyone spent their time in that cave, chained. But one man, one woman, this philosopher king, suddenly begins to realize how incredibly dissatisfying it is to live in a world where I can't, the shadow is after the fact of my movement. And I look and I am judged by my movements that I see and everyone else. And he turns around and lo and behold, there's a light. And now you get into St. Paul and it's blinding. Because what is he looking at? He walks to the entrance of the cave. What does he see? The sun. Oh my God, what's that? Sometimes we think that in the winter here in Merlin, Oregon. Oh my God, what is that bright light? It hurts my eyes. But I know, in spite of the pain of seeing not just what I do because of the light I'm in, but by that light I see that everything I took to be light before wasn't light. Everything I took to be real was never real. And I never knew it. And by the way, that's the matrix moment. That's the moment where the man or woman has to decide, do I take the red pill or the blue pill? Do I take the pill, meaning do I go back to sleep because it didn't hurt my eyes in the cave and everything was established there. I didn't have to do anything new. There was no threat to my existence. It was all laid out in the interaction of these shadows. And that's where that man or that woman, you, God willing, one day realize and start to understand the whole idea that here I am, and I don't know that I'm living in a world of shadows. And I never know I'm in a world of shadows until, and it is always by the grace of something unimaginable, into my life comes something, a light that reveals I was asleep again. I fell asleep into a dream I didn't know I was dreaming. Imagine how thick that must be that I can be in a dream and not know I'm dreaming. This is the human condition, and by the way, it explains everything that is dark, evil, and hateful on this planet. Because in real life, there is no hatred. In real life, there are no wars in real life. You won't find it on this planet, but you can be one of the men or women who begin to bring about this change in this consciousness that you and I are expressions of, so that that consciousness, as it is effectively acted on by a light that reveals the content of itself and its tendency to go to sleep, we can begin to have a different kind of life. Everybody got the setting for this? Let's bring up the key question now that we've set the stage. Read along with me, please. I know you don't understand this. It's impossible for you, honestly, God, it is. You can't imagine somebody that doesn't want something from you because you want something from everybody. You honestly can't imagine. Every suspicion you have about other human beings is because you know the way you are but don't see it. I don't want anything from you. I just want to help you see what I see. The key question frames the entirety of our talk today. In the moment of any impression, in particular a shocking one, let's slow down. How many of you ever had a particularly shocking impression? There is no one there to be for or against that revelation. Slow down. So here's a shocking impression. This is my path. You're not supposed to be on it. Suddenly I'm filled with violence. Now, in that moment, there is no one there to be for or against what is suddenly revealed in you. Something acts, something receives the action, an impression is made, and that activity and that passivity meet for the purpose of a conception that doesn't exist prior to that interaction. That interaction and the new conception doesn't have a name. It has no name at all. Name the moment where the sunlight turns the leaf into the food for the tree that bears the fruit. Name it. You can't. It's part of this beautiful stream of light and the life that it gives. So this moment, boom, as the question says, there's a shocking there. But wait a minute. There's no one there to hate or to love that revelation. It's pure. This is a very important point. Do you understand it? The revelation at that moment is pure. There is nothing outside of the moment, no separate self to measure what is revealed, let alone to resist it. Because isn't that what happens? Here comes something. Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes the hopping down the bunny trail. Anyway, Santa doesn't hop down the bunny trail. He does after 18 cookies and 9 glasses of milk. Here comes this impression and boom. Ah, yes or no? Ah, do it. Ah. No, you, this, them, right? And if that's true, and we can understand that there really is no one there in that moment, but that moment seems to create a very distinct sense of self, doesn't it? If it's true, then what is the nature of this false I that not only believes there is an alternate reality, but that on demand literally creates it? Now this is a key transition. The resistance seems to prove that there is an alternate reality. Otherwise, why would I resist that condition? So something sees that moment as one of many possibilities, none of which should transpire without my approval. And if they transpire without my approval and I'm filled with this negativity, then by God, you and the world must yield to me. You must yield to what I know is true. And I know it's true because of how much resistance I have to what I see as untrue. There can't be an untrue revelation. There can't be a moment and the experience of it that isn't true. The question is, can I discover the purpose of that truth? Can I participate in that truth instead of being someone who puts it off and puts it off? Why? Because I have something else in mind. And isn't that the conflict with life everywhere you go? Is that somebody, somewhere, some political power, some authority, some religious idea, some group has an idea different than mine. And they need to get in line or do what? Off with their head. We're remembering Chrissy, who's on a plane somewhere. So let's make a transition. Do you understand this key question? What is the nature? Now, I don't see this nature, but I can look in retrospect, and it's pretty clear to me that something is there, and anytime something happens, the minute that I have this knee-jerk resistance, the resistance proves to me, as strange as it is, that there's another way that this could happen. I could be someone else in this moment. Isn't that what's behind that? But the only way I'm going to be someone else in the moment is if the condition changes or you change. That's why I have to change everything all the time, including you, so that I can go back to my life as I've dreamed it. Still with me? Transition. So can we see that the negative reaction born of this, and it is painful resistance to the experience of an unwanted moment, can we see that doesn't appear without something in this unconscious nature that came into that moment with us that somehow or other is threatened by whatever that is that acted on me in that moment? Could I resist something fearfully, angrily, out of frustration, unless in that moment, without me knowing it, I walked in spring-loaded with a certainty that nothing should transpire other than the way in which I've imagined it should. But the problem, you see, is that I don't know I've imagined it should be this way. Because when I've imagined something, imagination is inseparable from identification. They are actually synonymous. Can you make the jump? Can you see, when I imagine something, there has to be an I who's imagined it, and the I that's imagined it doesn't exist without the object it's imagined. So subject and object appear at the same time as a singularity, when in truth both of them are part of a dream. Please? So when something happens that I don't want, it happens all the time. For instance, I had a hellacious day on the golf course yesterday. It's unbelievable. Here, just bad swing, bad swing, bad swing. Now, I only threw my clubs 10 times. What a gift. What a gift. Why? Because everything about the moment runs counter to all of the work, all of the things I understand, everything I imagine myself to be as someone who doesn't hit a shot like that. Now you take the golf course experience into the real world. Here comes somebody, they look at you, they say something, you meet somebody on the path that's not supposed to be on the path. You even tell them so. And their resistance and negativity to your commentary proves to you that your resistance to them was appropriate, doesn't it? So that somebody stepping on my dream that I tend to crush after they've done so proves to me that the dream was the reality, and they're in some strange dream world that never got the memo about how my dream unfolds. In short, yes or no? So it doesn't matter to us. Something threatens me, and it can be as petty as somebody forgetting to say thank you. You ever said, do you mean to say please? You ask, are you talking to me? It could be that small. Or, as the case will be, and it is inescapable, there will be a knock at the door of your mortality. So you've got a petty dream that's interrupted. I'm someone special who's not to be disrespected. How do I know? Because my resistance to the way you treat me proves that the image I have of myself is valid. Or the day comes, and it will come. It's coming even as it's already happened. You just don't know that yet. That's the extraordinary thing. You don't know that you've already died. And you have. You just don't understand it. You don't understand that nature of time yet. That moment, in quotes, that is inescapable as a human being in a mortal body, except for a few of you who believe somehow you could keep this what do they call this spaceship. Somehow I'm going to keep it alive. So without it being able to escape it, there is this what? Resistance, yes? Yes? Resistance to what? Some perceived threat, yes? So this knee-jerk resistance, and I really like this image. You know how you watch, at least in the old days, the magicians, they'd come on stage, and they were always dressed in a certain way, and they'd have sort of their own Vanna White, who would point to the saw blade or open the door, and they would do all these things. This resistance is a kind of, it's like the magician's assistant. It's the magician's assistance, the dark magician's assistance, because it creates and introduces into that moment an illusion. And the illusion that it entertains and brings in is by the nature of its denying what is being revealed. That's the illusion. The resistance proves to me that what I'm resisting is the illusion. Can you see it or not? You do something, and there's no question in my mind. You're asleep. You're in a dream. You don't know how things are supposed to go. It doesn't go this way. And my resistance, when it shows itself up like that, it is saying what to me? There must be an alternative to this revelation. I'm sorry you don't see the humor in this. You will one day. You won't be so caught up in even as I'm speaking. You're messing with my dreams, dude. My resistance says that there is an alternate to this moment. That's what resistance says. And it's not in that moment that this resistance tells me there's an alternative to the revelation of the moment. I am inseparable from the revelation of the moment. In truth, that's what I am is. I am the Word. I am the creation, meaning that my life is a moment-to-moment experience of the divine acting upon its own manifestation and bringing out of that which is earth, that which is heavenly. That which is dead, that which is alive. That which is in a tomb into resurrection. All of that religious stuff is inherent in this idea that in this moment where I resist, there's an alternative to this. And key here, follow me now. If there is an alternative, which there must be, otherwise why would I resist, right? The alternative experience must be what? More to my liking. How else can I get upset with you, them, this or that, unless my mind knows that not only is there an alternative to this, but I know the alternative, and it's a lot better than what I'm going through. I just have to get you and everyone else, my own body, I've just got to get everything lined up so that it stops having this experience that I don't want. You want to know what's the most useless thing in the world is for you to suffer over an experience that you don't want instead of using that suffering to discover and realize what's responsible for it. So in a heartbeat, you following me? There's obviously something more. Why would I resist this unless in the moment I'm measuring and comparing it to something that's better than what happened? Isn't what should be happening better than what did happen if I don't like what happened? You have to be awake. Most of you don't understand how squandered your energy is on the most useless dreams there are. And the useless dream is that one day you will be other than you are. If you can just dream another life, another moment, another plan, then you're going to get there. So in a heartbeat, I have already with me something that I don't particularly see in that moment. I just see everything that shouldn't be the way it is. Can I see things the way they shouldn't be, they are, unless something in me understands how they should be? Do you understand the question? So whatever I was first identified with, which is first this resistance, because that's where my attention went, to this summary conflict. In a heartbeat, I go from being identified with that to what my mind then drags out of the depth of itself, which is some new set of thoughts and feelings associated with how things should be and what needs to be done. In other words, now my mind is looking at what needs to change and how I need to be involved in that change, so I'm identified with a time to come. Just like that. Because resistance creates the time you don't want, and in the creation of the time you don't want, obviously exists a time that would be better than the one I'm in. This is the anatomy of the dreamer, is what I'm describing to you. And so it goes. Now I know what disturbed me. Shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't be like that. And now I know pretty much, because my mind is beginning to put images into itself, time to come when I know what I have to pursue, what I have to control, or what I have to otherwise avoid accordingly. So my attention goes from the moment I don't want, which doesn't exist without a self that believes that somehow the moment could be different than it is, into another moment where it'll be the way I want it to be, and then I'm identified with what I've dreamed. And it is a dream, isn't it? Now, what was the source of the moment I didn't want the moment before? A dream. A dream I didn't know I dreamed. Something that I had imagined was mine, should be, or will be, and then life comes along and says, I don't think so, not right now. You better go and struggle for another 40,000 years, and then one day you'll get it all worked out. You'll have enough. You'll be enough. So my dream is interrupted, but I don't know it's a dream, because the moment the dream is interrupted, it's replaced by what? Another dream. Like that, like a river of dreams that humanity lives in and has no idea they live in it, because it is very comfortable to sleep as you're carried along from identity to identity to identity, none of which know each other, let alone know that each subsequent identity is a fabricated self predicated on a dream, that each time it has that dream, by the nature of the dream, invites the end of it. This is something else you need to see. You can't have a dream that when you dream it hasn't been created with the end of it. You could call that karma if you want to. The justice of realizing that by the grace of God, what dreams a dream in order to complete itself is obviously incomplete, and whether we want to understand it or not, the cosmos are working to create and complete all things in a system that's whole. So sitting outside of that system with every dream I have, by the grace of God, something comes to disrupt my dream. Do you think to yourself, oh, thank God you've ruined that dream of mine? No, do you? No, what do you do the minute something interferes with what you've dreamed? Fight! The human fight club. So I have a dream. I have no awareness that I've fallen into a sleep state, and I don't. I'm so conditioned. And as I have this dream, lo and behold, something happens to it. And that revelation of that moment is what? Now listen. The revelation is either that I have been in this kind of pain, fear, and suffering. Either I've been in it 100,000 times or I've not. Either 100,000 times I have fought to somehow or other cling to what I know must be. And 100,000 times I've had it ripped from my hands again and again and again. And if I understand that to any extent at all, I realize that every dream, now I'm using different words, every dream enters into, by its nature, a kind of stream. It's part of a stream that moves into a desert, and that desert always ends with the oblivion of that dream. It swallows the dream. And it's always at that moment where that dream is being swallowed that I'm most likely to do what? I'm most likely to remand myself. Please, it's not you dreaming. That's what you don't understand. Who would dream a dream that leads to their destruction? Who would dream a dream that sets them against another human being? Who would dream a dream that depletes everything that's vital about themselves, or that makes a victim of themselves, or who wants to victimize others for interfering with their dream? Would you dream that dream deliberately? Consciously? And then again, as I said, there comes a point in time where death shuts down the machine. There's a dreaming machine. You and I live in it. Not it lives in you. It lives in you according to your identification with the flow of that thought and feeling nature. So let me summarize this. Are you interested? Doesn't matter whether you're driving your car or walking down the street, lying in bed, eating a piece of pizza. All of this applies. First, I'm sitting in the restaurant. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see someone that when I look at them, there was no me, there was no I that was going to sit there and judge them for what they were wearing or how they looked or what they were doing. But in a beat, boom, something has taken my attention and placed it on that person. Now, if I resist and judge that person, did I take my attention over to that person? Or in that moment has what's happened? My attention is taken, it's given, and an impression is created in that same moment. Yes? The impression isn't a very pretty one, is it, when I'm judging someone? Yes or no? And the moment that impression takes place, because my attention has been placed for me, what comes up? What's inherent in that impression that my mind has been taken to? An unseen judgment. So my attention is given to something. When it's given to it, instantaneously there's this impression inseparable from my attention falling on it. Failing to see the only reason my attention would fall on somebody that I don't like is so that I can sit there and not like them. So here's an unseen judgment, and the judgment is the beginning of a certain kind of storm, a storm of various reactions, because now I'm filled with a certain kind of conflict. And the conflict is my mind talking to itself, listen, about what's wrong with that person, that is its view based on what should that person be like. So I'm in conflict with what I think is a person. I'm not in conflict with a person. My mind is in conflict with itself in that moment. Do you see it? And as all that's going on, what's this mind doing as all that's taking place? It's considering its possibilities. And as it starts to work through those possibilities, what are those possibilities providing other than the most favorable actions to take given the possibilities? This is happening like this. I'm stretching it out. You must see it. So now, all of a sudden, I've got choices. And my choices are, do I say something to my wife? Do I say something to my husband, my kids? Do I talk to myself? Because that's already going on, isn't it? And in that moment, without ever seeing it, a certain sense of myself appears on the stage, and it's participating in a drama that was created by a dream it was in prior to that moment where its attention was placed on what it was placed on. This never stops happening. It is almost seamless, and if it weren't for the grace of a certain kind of light, it would be seamless. Let's bring up the special writing, please. Stay with me. Another 20 minutes. We'll be right where we were. It's called Dreams Are of the Finite World. And I titled it that because years and 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 years ago, when I was in my late teens, I was deeply involved in a very severe self-initiated practice, meditating, breathing exercises for maybe 6, 8, 10 hours a day sometimes. And I'd sit and meditate. I was so ambitious. Well, I didn't know at the time. But then by the grace of God, and you can take it for what it's worth, in my room, my meditation place, which was in a little cave, almost virtually in the Benedict Canyon, little house buried in the mountains and the hills, all of a sudden appeared in the room where I was, a sadhu, an Indian in ash, verbiti. And he walked over and he took my left hand, and with a stamp, this is how obscure it was, with a rubber stamp, stamped in red on my hand these words: dreams are of the finite world. Now, at the time, I was more or less working with an apprentice to a fairly well-known teacher. And he said to me, that's your passport to heaven, he told me. Now, I thought he was saying something altogether other than what I imagined he was saying. Because what that was saying is, you know what, you're sitting here, you're dreaming, dude. You're drugging yourself, more or less, to produce a constant state of self that disappears the moment you walk into the pizza place and they don't have the one that you've ordered. So here's the point. Dreams are of the finite world. Special writing. We are carried along in the stream of passing time by our dream that freedom from stress, strain, and struggle will be ours as soon as we reach the promised land of perfect security as imagined awaits us just around the bend. But what we are yet to see, and must if we hope to escape our captivity in this world of seamless dreams, is the following. The shock of any painful experience is the same as being momentarily awakened to a truth we don't want to see, let alone realize. Dreams are of the finite world. And suffering is the inescapable conclusion of being identified with that illusion. Isn't it remarkable that you can have the same anger, the same fear, the same frustration, the same resentment, the same regrets over and over and over and over and over, and saw your mother and father over and over and their mother and father through time. And I don't want the moment where I see that's true. I don't want to know that when the moment comes and the shock reveals that once again I have been in a dream, not knowing I was dreaming, I want the blue pill. I just want to go back to sleep. I don't think to myself, I want to go back to sleep, because I'm listening to something in me thinking about what it has to do to escape having been awakened to the fact of myself. That's what desire does in its unconscious state. Is it continues to deliver you into the hands of the next temptation that promises the torment of this moment caused by them, this or that, will be gone because you're going to triumph over yourself and those conditions, and you will at last arrive in a world where you are safe and sound forever and ever. And my vital energies flow out of my body like the prodigal son, squandered and squandered and squandered in what? Where did that prodigal son squander all of his energies? Where? in a world that he dreamed would make him real. In a world he dreamed would give him what his Father had already given to him. Do you see it? So with each one of these shocks, and I don't usually like to rely on things like this, but it's really it's a matrix moment. And the thing about the matrix moment, which was quite unique, this was really quite an exceptional bit of writing, is that in that moment, when I'm suddenly awakened, what am I awakened to in that moment? I hope you know, pretty much everybody knows by now the Matrix, right? This world in which Neo and Morpheus, the god of death, Neo, the newborn. Suddenly I'm aware of what? Holy God, I didn't know I've been living in a world of machinery. The machinery of a dream. And not just innocent machinery of a dream, the machinery of a world whose dreams drain me as I'm being kept alive by those machines for the purpose of feeding what they need to feed, while I live in a dream world where I can taste the steak when I cut it, where I can have everything because all I have to do is just go back to sleep. That's all I have to do. And my suffering is over. No, my suffering isn't over when I go back to sleep. Because the dream guarantees that not only am I suffering for being in that dream, but the dream is built with the end of itself and I'm flushed. Please? So what goes on? We're going to make a transition and get into a bit of a exposition and summary. I find myself awakened by a shock. How many of you find yourself, and by the way, do you shock yourself? No, I don't shock. No, who's going to mess with my dream? You're shocking enough. Shock just to look at you sometimes. No, I find myself suddenly awakened by a shock. Now, in the moment when I'm awakened by a shock, isn't part of that moment a kind of momentary being, what would be the word, reawakened to the awareness that, oh my God, I've been asleep. Now, you may not be able to equate that reawakening to having been asleep, but at some point, you'll have had enough of these experiences, you'll start to realize somehow I got deposited back. And when I was deposited back, I didn't know I was deposited back because the moment where I was momentarily reawakened brought with it this temptation to go back into sleep. See, you don't understand. It's hard to explain this. Do you know there isn't anybody, no matter how much money they have, no matter what they've given themselves, who at some point wish they had something other than they'd given themselves? I got to make a little change here, it'll be better. Translation, if I make a little change here, I can be identified with something else and momentarily forget that everything that I just dreamed and built for myself has proven to be bitter to me. I'm not denigrating the success of a human being. I'm very fortunate for my life. I have myself a little house with a big window and I've got animals outside every day that I can go out and feed. I have time to do it. I have all the time in the world to meditate and contemplate the things that I do. But there are moments where you're looking and you're thinking to yourself, well, if I just do a little thing, add a little this, maybe a different kind of deck. A hammock on an island with a cocktail for like 42 years. Now that would be quite the dream. But there's only one problem with you being in a hammock with cocktails for 42 years. Do you know what it is? You won't like the hammock at a certain point. You'll get tired of pina coladas or margaritas, and you'll start judging everyone and everything around you for disturbing the dream that you gave yourself to in order to escape the dream you'd given to yourself before. If I'm lying, I'm dying. You have to see it for yourself. So, here I am. I have this moment. Maybe I'm walking to the kitchen. Maybe I'm on the path walking up and it could be anything. Like that. And there is an impression. And this impression is the sudden realization that I was somehow detached. That whatever it was that was taking place and myself participating in it, somehow or other, I thought it was this sort of a seamless thing. Merrily, merrily row your boat gently down the stream, and suddenly there's a rock in the stream. Now, I don't know about you, there's not supposed to be rocks in my stream. Are there rocks in your stream? And in a heartbeat, there's a revelation that without knowing it, I had been in a stream of thoughts. I'd been identified with the movement of whatever it was telling me where to go and what to do in order to keep the dream alive. And then here I am, I'm the slave of my own dreams. In fact, bring up the third key lesson before I get to the exercise. I love this little third key lesson. I hope that you like it as much as I do. Read along with me, please. You ready? I dreamed a pretty box, large, elegant, and stout, and I filled it to the brim with treasures about. Is it up there? Not yet. I'm waiting for this to come up. I'll start again. That's what we do. I dreamed a pretty box. I'm having a nightmare. No, see it? Anytime something doesn't go the way you want to. And I know Debbie's a mess right now. It's okay. Use it. This is the whole story. I dreamed a pretty box, large, elegant, and stout, and I filled it to the brim with treasures strewn about. But after walking in, just imagine my shock. The door by which I'd entered now won't let me out. That's what a dream is a pretty box, elegant and stout. And I strew it with treasures all about, all of the things that'll be who I will. But after walking in, do we not walk in? Imagine my shock. The door by which I'd enter won't let me out. I'm in a dream I can't get out of. And so I dream a way to get out of the dream. Instead of recognizing the dream itself belongs to a consciousness that must be lost, must be given up, must be sacrificed. But there's a great rub here, isn't there? That when I see I'm in a dream, I don't know who I am without another dream to take its place. Without the next resistance, the next rejection, the next promise, the next thing to blame, the next hope, the next God that's going to save me from what I've been delivered into by some ungodly force that cares nothing for me. And the only ungodly force there is not a creation of the divine. It is a creation of imagination in a human being that needs to believe somehow or other that as it isn't enough, and therefore must give itself everything it needs to do what? To escape the pain and the prison of its own constant identification with thought and feeling. I love that little poem. Did it go away already? No. I dreamed a pretty box. How many of you dream a pretty box? How many relationships turned out to be a box, elegant and stout, that you strewed with treasures all about, and then you couldn't get out? And even when you get rid of the person that you got rid of, you still can't get out of that box of reliving that life, can you? Do you understand what I'm saying? God, I'm in a box! The box is made of thoughts and feelings and the temptation to identify with them. And the greater the clarity of that is, we get to the exercise now. Nice deep breath. Here is this shock. How many of you have had that shock of realizing, once again, I was in a dream? Because something came rising up from inside of me. My whole life, when I have those shocks, the one thing that has always taken place is that in the moment of the shock, the resistance that is part of that shock simply replaces the me that's shocked with a me that will somehow transcend the condition, and I'll be free. Now, instead of suffering the continuation of the dream, you must understand the necessity of the discontinuation of the dreamer. That's the mandate. To suffer for the sake of staying awake instead of suffering uselessly in a dream that you create and then find yourself trying to escape. To suffer for the sake of staying awake. And it will be suffering, but it'll be conscious. It won't be an unconscious suffering that creates a corresponding dream to escape the content of itself, that then becomes the source of the next dream ad infinitum. It will be you beginning as best you understand. And really, this whole thing started, just one thought came in the midst of something some time ago. Is any more one word or two words? One word? 6 words. Write them down. I don't want to dream anymore. I don't want to dream anymore. I don't want to sit in my car and dream. I don't want to speak to people and dream while they're talking to me. I don't want to dream while I'm playing golf. I don't want to dream when things don't go the way I want them to. I don't want to dream when I look in the mirror. I don't want to dream about food. I don't want to dream about anything anymore. Why? Because I understand that dreams contain their own end, and I'm tired of coming to the end of myself and having to reinvent yet another dream. It's exhausting. I don't want to dream anymore. You make that your wish and your prayer in the moment where you are reawakened to the fact you were in a dream before. That's the whole point. Do you understand? You're going to be awakened. You're not going to escape the whole of human consciousness. I am. But I am also that light that reveals the whole of human consciousness to itself. That must be brought together, and one must enter into that relationship where, by the grace, again, suddenly I'm awakened to the fact, hey, I'm sitting here. Have you ever been tortured over something that you had no control over, but that you believe somehow your tortured state proves to you that you should have control over it? Yes or no? I know people that are tortured by their past. Do you know anybody tortured by their past? And I'm not talking about the past of 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago where you did the unmentionable or somebody did it to you. I'm talking about tortured by the past of what took place 2 seconds ago. Do you relive conversations with people? Do you know what you're doing when you're reliving conversations with people? Do you relive experiences that you had? Yes or no? Do you know what you're doing when that's going on? It's not you doing it. You're just rewriting the dream. I don't want to dream anymore. And inherent in that wish is something that begins to work for you. And here's what it is, and then we'll close on this. I was asleep. Didn't know I'd fallen asleep. That's the amazing thing. I fell asleep. And suddenly I'm awakened. Now, the moment in which I am reawakened, that moment, the whole of that impression, you must take a snapshot of. The whole of that impression, OMG, not anything that follows. Nothing that follows. The whole of that moment, God, I was asleep. Here's this resistance. Here's something trying to tempt me into figuring out how to escape it, to blame. The whole of that moment, it must become a single snapshot. One picture that you do not think about. Because as you have these moments of more and more being reawakened, and do you know why you're being more and more reawakened? Because these snapshots, as you take them, begin to bring on side of you a realization that there is indeed a kind of unconscious conspiracy on the part of this nature that I don't know moves me to ensure that I remain on this side of the river of dreams. That's all it wants. And it keeps you there by giving you the next thing, the temptation, the next thing. Every thought on this side of the river of dreams that tells you here's how you cross is keeping you on the wrong side of the river of dreams. So at some point you're going to have to do what? It goes right to the temptation of Christ in the desert. No, thank you. I'm going to bear what I have to bear. Do to me what you have to do to me. I will see for myself the truth of whether or not this dream needs to be kept in place or whether there's another order of being that has nothing to do with an identity derived from a dream. Got it? Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
The first is a reminder. We have been issuing this invitation for the last couple of weeks, but the time has come. This Friday will be our special online event. Talks in the Pines is what we call it. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Guy is going to be speaking on a special topic, and you can see there below me on the screen that topic, your passport to a new world beyond stress, struggle, and useless pain. Talks in the Pines. Opportunity for you to visit us here at the Life of Learning, as well as join us online for this series of talks that Guy will be giving. Those talks, if you are a part already, if you are listening to us, you will be able to hear these talks online. We will also be offering a replay package of the talks for you at a special price. And that replay package will also include the talk that Guy is going to give this coming Wednesday. Oftentimes, Guy uses the class before Talks in the Pines to introduce us to and give a prelude and opening remarks to lead us into that topic. And I know he intends to do that again this Wednesday, so hope you'll join us for that as well. If you need or want any more further information about this coming special weekend event, just go to guyfinley.org/tips. And we are looking forward to it. We already know that there are a number of students who will be visiting us and joining us for the occasion, so we look forward to that. The second thing I want to remind you of is that we have been, for the last several months, we have been hosting a special series of classes on Wednesdays that Guy has been calling Deep Dive Wednesday. We just had it this past Wednesday on the 12th, and our next Deep Dive Wednesday is coming up on the 26th. So I mentioned that just because the topics and the theme of what we explore on Deep Dive Wednesdays is generated by we, the students ourselves. And so just want to continue to invite those of you online, us as fellow students here at the Foundation, to submit to Guy the topics, the questions, the comments, the quotations, whatever it is that you want him to explore and to examine more deeply, to send those in. And we keep compiling those and always want to have a fresh list and agenda of topics for our Deep Dive Wednesdays. So anything that you want Guy to talk about in the future, just submit it to guyfinley.org/contact. And again, the next Deep Dive Wednesday will be on June 26th. So mark that on your calendars and send in your topics and themes. All right, with those two announcements, let's go back to the room, see if Guy is ready to begin our discussion. Okay, there he is. All right, Guy. Again, so this is our opportunity. There are a variety of ways to participate. Those of you on GoToWebinar can click the hand icon, and I see we have a couple of people in the queue already. Those of you on Facebook or YouTube, send in your questions or comments in your chat box, and they get relayed to me. And of course, students in the room, you can go up to the mic at any time. So I see we have, let's go to the queue, Guy, and we'll start with Fiona.
John, let's hold. We got someone on the mic. We'll go to Fiona right after Patricia.
All right. Thank you, Guy.
My name is Patricia. This talk, I always love when the talk hits something personal in my life that I could relate to it and learn more about it. And not even, I mean, most of my life is over, so it was from a long time ago. When my father died, and I remember when I heard my father died, the huge shock of it. He was a very young man when he died, only 51. But the shock of it, the big impression and the shock of it was final. There was no way I could wiggle. There was no wiggle room in death. It was final. I couldn't hope he would get better if he was in the hospital. And I did realize at that time, that was the first time in my life I ever had something final. because everything was always a choice or a wiggle room in my mind that I could go to, a dream. And I suffered his death for the longest time, but it was a pure, like Guy said, there was no resistance in it because there was no wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the conscious suffering. And it quite waked me up a lot. I saw things I never saw. And it was an awakening time for me.
Okay, John.
All right, Guy and Fiona. Good morning, Fiona.
Hello, John. Hello, Guy.
Hi, Fiona.
Well, the so many things again to see. The being in a dream and being woken up is our only chance, obviously. But there is always great suffering in that, and yeah, I'm not capable of keeping that to myself. You know, as I see injustices, then I like to point it out. But really, I've been able to see that there is a point where that suffering is then unnameable. You know, you stop putting a name to it, and then that's when things can happen. Like anything in nature, anything that has possibility is like, you know, for example, Jeff has been talking about Buckminster Fuller and the geodesic shapes, the dome. I mean, he came across these principles, and that's the principles of the laws of nature, and that's going on as a tool within our body all the time.
Yes.
But we don't name that second. We don't name every second of that evolution, that biology, that creation. We don't name it. It's happening, and so it does seem, you just think, well, it's crazy to name anything and be identified with it. But then, of course, because of our predicament, that we have that suffering, and just really doing our best to just stay with that for something new to evolve. I mean, the drop the mic moment was, of course, today when you said about, you know, we've already died. I mean, everything, we've all lived and died at the beginning of time, but the possibility, and what I'm really fascinated with is, but the possibility for our creation, our creative, isn't finished. You know, it's not finished. We're in it, and that, I feel that's why we feel that drive to discover more, and all of that is putting the dream to sleep, as it were. You know, just yeah. I mean, it's nameless.
That's good. A couple quick comments, Fiona. First, and I hear this all the time, I'm not saying that there isn't injustice, but I am saying that all forms of injustice have a root. The meaning of justice in the end is balance. Karma is justice. So if I see something that's unjust, the only way that I get negative or angry or violent about it is because in that moment I myself am without justice. It's hard for us to imagine taking any action that isn't predicated on some kind of painful state or desire for a pleasure. Can you tell me any actions that you take that aren't predicated in trying to avoid or change a pain or pursue a pleasure? Can you? You want to know why the world doesn't change? Because the consciousness that creates it is in a dream and continues the dream and uses you and I to ensure it never stops. It can stop. I don't want to dream anymore. Doesn't mean that I won't go pick up a beach if there's plastic on it. Doesn't mean that I don't stop and pick up trash that doesn't belong to me. I've always told you this. You see something out of place, pick it up. My older brother used to say, that's not my responsibility. He had his life. His dream was that the world was here to serve him. That's not the real dream. So on one hand, if there's injustice, there's injustice. Take part in it as you must, but try not to be part of what is unjust through your actions. That's one. Number two, and this so that I can perhaps disarm a question before it comes in. There is something called conscious dreaming. And I don't mean that you go to sleep and have a lucid dream. I mean that I'm sitting at home and I'm trying to figure out how I want to build something. I have an impression of something that I can't formulate entirely with my mind, and so I release my mind to a process of imagination. In that imagination, meaning in that condition, consciousness sorts itself out. It begins to see and create what it needs to see and create, and then I'm the recipient of that conscious dreaming. I become the instrument of a conscious dream instead of the dull-witted, broken instrument of an unconscious dream that's forever trying to create something that isn't practical. And that's what an unconscious dream is. All unconscious dreams are the pursuit of something that has no practicality and only something impersonal, whereas a conscious dream it's personal. I go to the golf course, which is my day, how I relax. I go because I can stop working for a little bit. Because I never stop working. But there are times when I want to stop working. I turn on the television to watch a show. I stop working. The mind, the body, the heart, everything needs rest. So there is a conscious rest that isn't resting in another dream. There is resting in your understanding that I'm going to go to sleep, in quotes, but I understand that I'm doing that for the purpose of resting, and I will be reawakened. That's not up to me, and then I will pursue and do what I need to do. Important distinction if you've understood it. On we go, John.
All right, Guy. We'll go next to a written question. Carl sent the written question in this morning, and here's what Carl asks. He says, Carl has been falling forward in his inner work lately. Self-judgment is lessening in intensity. As I'm seeing, I'm trying to painfully get rid of self-judgment when I'm first creating it. This has been one of the most impactful revelations I've seen since I started studying with you. The self-judgment still comes, but I try my best not to identify what it's pointing to. Hopefully, Guy could expand a bit on this for myself.
Sure. So you understand what he's asking, what Carl is saying? Carl's saying, I'm working as best I can, and I realize that I'm prone, surprise, surprise, unlike every other human being on the planet, to be in a fairly ceaseless state of judging myself. And when I catch myself judging myself, I try not to go back into the dream of being someone who, in quote, isn't going to judge myself anymore. Basically, I'm trying to watch the formation of the dream that's been challenged, otherwise I wouldn't be judging myself. And I'm trying to watch how another dream is trying to take its place by the appearance of the me who's other than the me I've judged, basically. What else is there to know? See, don't you see? Maybe not. There was an old movie, Kirk Douglas said, I just want to be champ. This nature is always going, I just want to go on. I just want to go on. Only it doesn't whine. Well, actually it does. But then it'll shout, it'll scream, it'll demand, I just want to go on. Don't tell me anything about myself I don't want to hear. Don't show me anything that interferes with the stage that I've arranged and have every character on ready to take out and act out my play. Don't do that. And you have to get to the point, Carl and everybody does, where you actually understand you can dream or you can be awakened and start working to no longer dream. That's it. And then, instead of resisting and judging yourself for having fallen asleep, to use the resistance to realize you're being driven into another dream as being someone who shouldn't have fallen asleep. Don't you see that? We're going to talk about this in pretty big depth over the weekend of the Talks in the Pines, starting Wednesday. Would you ever say to somebody, you know, I just want to spend the rest of my life suffering for nothing? Would you ever say that to somebody? That sounds absolutely insane, doesn't it? And yet, with God as my witness, and if you'll excuse me, the divine is, that's all a human being does who spends their life in one dream after another, is suffer for the sake of the nothingness born out of identifying with what that dream has created as the deliverance from your pain. That's suffering for nothing. Now, if that's true, what would suffering for something be? Listen, it wouldn't be suffering for my own sake anymore. Because I suffer, that's all I suffer, is for my own sake. I have a new sake. Yes, I have a new sake. I couldn't create it, I couldn't have dreamed it. But for the sake of seeing that I suffer for nothing, now I have a new sake, something that I agree. I'm going to stay as long as I can, awake as long as I can. I'm going to bear the thoughts that are yelling at me, but you got to do this, you got to look at that, you got to go here, you got to. Rush. No. Worry. Nope. Be angry. Whew, I don't think so. Well, surely something's wrong with you. You're right. No fight. No fight. A new fight. That I'm going to suffer for. And you'll see as you take these snapshots that you are awakened more and more readily and more definitively, and every time you're reawakened, you understand the necessity of suffering for something other than what you call your sake, for the sake of that dream nature. Back over to you, John.
All right, Guy, we'll go next to Namita, who's in our queue. Hello, Namita, you're unmuted.
Hi, Guy.
What would a day be without Namita?
Yes, and actually, I have been trying to step away from Namita as much as I can, and it's working a little bit. I do get deceived into jumping back into the thoughts, but when I'm able to withdraw my attention, and like there's this silence, and then I notice that there's an impression, not outside in, but inside out.
Okay.
And then I have heard Vernon Howard and you talk about allowing or obeying. So is that what needs to happen? Is that the impression that comes from inside out? Is that what needs to be obeyed?
Namita. If I see that I'm hurting myself, Namita, am I obeying something to stop hurting myself? Or is seeing that I'm hurting myself the action without authority? action without authority. Dreams create authoritarians. Dreams create the need to obey. Because for us, the idea of obedience is always separate from the thing that we obey. Is it not? Real obedience is not separate from the thing that you obey. It's a single moment, a single action, a single understanding. We want this mind meeting as it does, and there's nothing wrong with it, Namita. And by the way, say hello, please, to Chaitu.
I will.
This is for Namita, but everybody. At some point, when it's clear to you that something is working on you and for you from within, at some point you're going to realize that your fear of running out of time is a dream in time. You're going to have to come to grips with that. Because disappointment, shock, loss, another, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, and it becomes overwhelming to the aspirant. It's part of this dweller at the threshold. It's part of this unconscious nature that stands guard over the river. That's just built into this relationship that you have asked to be brought into consciously. And at some point your attitude towards your own failures will be, so what else? So what else? Because you'll understand the you that's rejecting the realization of having failed doesn't exist. That pain doesn't exist without being identified with who it was that should have been able to do better at this point. I hear that all the time. I've been aspiring, I've been studying hard for 4.5 months. Men and women have spent thousands of years. And there's yet something still to be seen. And all the time in the world. Not the time it takes to get there, but the time to see the time you fear isn't real. You can't give that to yourself. You could dream that for 1,000 years, but it will be part of your gradual awakening of recognizing the truth of that. And by the way, there's great peace in it because it's the end of that constant perturbance and disturbance and what's going to happen to me? What a nightmare. You want to know what a nightmare is? Every time you hear a voice in your head or a feeling pass through you and it says, what's going to happen to me? Because you never ask what's going to happen to me until something's happened that you don't want to have happened. Yes or no? Yeah. That's it, Namita. That's all I got for now. On we go, John.
All right, Guy, I'm going to come on and share with you a question that came in from Tony this morning.
Okay.
Tony asked, how do you handle this? Someone fails to plan to do something nice for someone or forgets about it, and then they demand you step up for their failing to do so. Are you saying I just do it because we're all connected?
Hi, Tony. Tony, I just want you to see, not try to be. I can show you if you want. I'm not just talking to Tony. You understand you're Tony? She may not like that idea, but nevertheless, you're Tony. I'm Tony. Here's what I've seen, see it or not. I don't have a demand on this life that's not part of a dream. Not one. And I don't even know I've got that demand till you mess with my dream. God doesn't mess with your dreams. God helps you see what a mess you are because of your dreams. So everybody according to their own. That's the beauty of work. I mean, I talk to men and women, thousands of them every week, literally, and they're at every level. Just as everybody in this room is at a different level. Everybody sees what they see. But eventually you start to see that I can't get negative and be full of resistance without a demand. Now, the demand is foregone conclusion that it's intelligent, wise, and proper, and loving, and good, and Christ-like, and all the rest of that. Otherwise, why would I have that demand? It comes from God himself. God himself gave me the demand. I command you. And then somebody has the audacity to not understand how their demand on me is destroying my happiness. So I should get in there and mess with other people's demands when they're as much a hallucination as my own? But I will until I see that, won't I? I can't do anything other than that, Namita, until I see that. So Tony, do you know when a man or a woman finally loves all of mankind, all of humankind? Do you know when that happens? When a person finally understands what it is, how a person can love all of humankind? Do you have anybody have a clue? It's when at last you don't want one thing from any other human being on the planet so that you can meet everyone with a constant equanimity that allows the individual and the moment to reveal what the moment is asked for, and you're honest and loyal to that moment as you've been requested to be. That's what love is. That's the aim. If you don't start with a mind that is unjust, you can't take an unjust action. If you start with a mind that is full of injustice, you will always be unjust towards everyone you meet. And by the way, because of that, you will always see everyone as being unjust towards you. How many of you feel people aren't just towards you? Yes or no? Where's my big hammer? Where's my big hammer? Oh, I was going to drop it, but I guess I won't. Okay. On we go. On we go.
On we go. All right, Guy, we are at about 5 after 11. I have 2 written questions that came in and no hands in the queue, so I can go to the next written question. This one from Raju, which I think ties in nicely with what you were just talking about. Raju says, breaking down the word dream, we use the word usually in 2 primary ways. One, whatever I dreamed last night, a seemingly unrelated cluster or clutter of many thoughts and feelings that live within me, or whatever is taking my focus, positive or negative. Or 2, dreams or goals born out of desire or ambition that I desire to achieve. So from today's talk, it is fair to say that both are simply imaginations born out of our consciousness. If that is true, and instead I stop dreaming of either kind and stay in the pain or suffering, what am I doing? How am I realizing me or completing nature's purpose?
Hi, Raju. You know, everybody has a certain tendency connected to themselves, and you can, those of you who've been studying long enough, and even those of you who've been online long enough, you start to hear there's certain questions have a constant recurring theme to them, don't they? I don't think that this is something fascinating to me. And I speak personally for a split second, then I'm going to get to answer Raju. I don't know if any of you journal. if you write down the insights and things that you do and discoveries. But it's an amazing thing to realize that you realized something a long time ago and you still haven't realized it. And there you were writing it. I got it. And you're looking at this. This is from 30 years ago. Who was this person who understood then? Where are they now? You mean I haven't outgrown? I haven't become more than what I understood then? Oh no! Nothing changes in a dream except for the need to constantly change what you're dreaming. Nothing changes in a dream save for what you constantly need to change as you're dreaming. That's all that changes in a dream. And the reason that nothing changes in a dream is because the consciousness that creates it remains exactly the same, looking for exactly the same consolation, exactly the same content, that it just reorganizes in the content of itself, brings it into the present moment with the circumstances, and just simply recreates the stage and the act for itself to go through the next iteration of itself. Now, I say that to you leading up to answering Raju. Raju always wants to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know what that means, everybody? You never ever heard me tell you not to have ambition. You can't do it anyway. You never heard me say, don't have this desire. You can't escape your desires. But what you need to understand is that, in quotes, your desires are essentially born out of a certain relationship between what created your essence, brought it into this world, and what is required to balance that essence so that you can become a more complete, holy instrument of the divine that gave you this life. So that you are invited all the time to not just try, I mean, get into it, man. Get into it. Give it everything. Don't hold back. Why? Because the more completely I can give myself to whatever it is that this dream has told me I need to do, the clearer it's going to come to me that I can't bring an end to the dream regardless what I do. But if I go into it completely, I can begin to explore and discover the parts of myself that are out of whack and that can only be put back into whack by a firm whack from the divine. Then I see, you know what, I thought redecorating, I thought getting my face fixed, I thought buying new clothes, I thought a hammock with a cocktail, I thought another $4 million, another $4 might make a difference in my life. I was pretty sure if I could just do it. See, Raju, come to the end of it, man. And you know why you won't do it? Because you're afraid to come to the end of the dream. It's afraid to come to the end of itself. It is. It's terrified of it. That's why only God can take a man or a woman through this journey. Only God could do this, because only God can show you that what you think is the end of the journey, oh my God, a mountain with 10,000 million pebbles, how am I going to move that? Then you see the mountain isn't real. First there's a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. So I go through all of the necessary steps of awakening to realize that I had dreamed in place all of the obstacles, and that the obstacles were there to show me they were part of a dream. And lo and behold, full circle. The end of something, the end of something, the end of something, the end of something. Not the beginning, the end of something, the end of something, the end of something. And then there are these moments such as I'm experiencing, and one day I pray for you. There's the moment with just what is. No demand on it, no wishing I was someplace else, no trying to go somewhere, think of things. I got no deeds to do, no classes to keep. What's the rest? Slow down, you're moving too fast. Okay, that's pretty good. Thanks. Yeah. So that's my answer, Raju. And I think, is there one more written question I'm looking at there, John?
Yes, Guy, we had a written question that came in from Frida this morning. We could perhaps
I will
Answer
answer that
that.
and then we'll go home.
All right. Here is the question from Frida. She says, "Hello, Guy. More and more I see the negative thoughts Frida has about everything and everyone. I never thought Frida was so negative. And Frida wanting to stick to something in a discussion, while afterwards I think, how did it necessarily have to be that way? Who was that? But is seeing everything enough and not identifying with it? Because this has been going on for a while. Or am I not seeing enough in this? Thank you."
Yes. What a monster of our own making is this thing called time. Is this idea of becoming. Becoming steals from you everything that you are. And time creates a tempest in which there's no end to that suffering. The momentary illumination of such things is momentary. And the particular sense of I, the higher understanding that appears and grants you that, it will go. But the more you understand that it comes on its own, the more you'll have the open sign out. And the more you'll be able to live in another kind of understanding, another kind of world, quite literally, another order of your own being. It waits for you. It's already there. It's actually already present. You just have to continually understand what it takes to present yourself to its influences instead of the influences produced by dreaming about yourself and a time when you'll become X, Y, or Z. Good afternoon. Bye.
Guy, do we have any students in the room who want to
Okay.
speak before we
I'm such a
shot?
bad person. I'm the worst person ever. I must be. Yes, Eric, I am the worst person ever? Thank you, Eric. Okay, we're out of time. Eric's coming up to the stage.
Hi, I'm Eric. And this has been said 100 times in different ways today already, but the only way that we can be anxious around other people or want to fight with them, in a fight, is if we want something from them. And it seems to me like the root, or closer to the root, of what Eric wants from them is to please confirm my image, my sense of self that I came in with, and enhance it if at all possible. So it's like coming into the moment with carrying a bag of bricks.
Exactly.
And I'm basically saying, please add one more brick, or as many as you can, to my bag that I'm carrying around. And one more thing about that is, if you're in a fight with somebody, or with just the world in general, normally the thinking is, well, they're doing something to me. Rather than, the first thought is never, I want something. Something in me wants something from the world, from the other person. That's it.
Come on, Wayne. We're fine. I said this Saturday, it connects. Yes or no, I have a summary resistance to anything that disturbs me. I take my summary resistance that I feel as you pushing against me. I take my summary resistance as you pushing against me. You are not pushing against me, and even if you are, that still has nothing to do with this resistance that comes up. No one is pushing. See, I keep trying to get this picture across. I guess I will have my dying breath, I suppose. This consciousness is involved in a ceaseless interaction of creating what it then resists and then dreaming about something else that will save it from its own resistance. It's just this unending, maniacal movement of thought and feelings produced by time and the effort to make knowledge fit what I want into something that I can live with. And it doesn't stop. It's not you. You're not involved in this. You just dream you are.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Wayne. What I want to share with you is a time when I was in the military stationed in Korea, in which I had this dream in which had this discussion with my father, and we had an argument, and I said, "Oh, I wish you were dead." And I woke up from the dream, and I had a really odd feeling that. And a half hour later, I was asked to go see the chaplain, in which he told me that my father had died. And for the longest time, this Wayne nature thought he was complicit in his own father's death and carried that. So what I realized, it was just nothing but a dream within a dream within a dream.
Yes.
And
you mustn't let that ever torment you, ever, as it wants to do.
yes, that's exactly right. Thank you for...
You mustn't.
But that's why I appreciate this work so much, I need to delve into it and see how much Wayne gets caught up in this dream and identified with it, and it's not me at all.
It's not you at all.
Yeah, so thank you.
Understanding the depth of what I've said to Wayne. Come on, is there anyone here who didn't ever wish evil on somebody? The only time I would wish evil on somebody is when some reason, somehow or other, that person has interfered with a dream of mine. I wouldn't wish evil. So here I am, and I've said and done things. I've really hurt people. Everyone has. And the nature that did the hurting did so in order to somehow or other mitigate a dream. And then that nature that dreamed the evil then judges the evil that it dreamed. And I spend my life not only unable to forgive myself, but never realizing the only time any human being transgresses against another human being is when that man or woman is caught in a dream and trying to escape it by blaming, judging, or wishing evil on others. And you see the whole of that, and forgiveness is built into it. There's no you forgiving anyone. You've been forgiven from the sin of being a sleeping human being is what's happened. And when you're forgiven from that sin, all other human beings in your life are forgiven their sin on the spot. And it's not because you're a godly creature. It's because you see how ungodly you have lived. And you've paid the price of seeing that, and now you understand why everyone steps on everyone else's toe and why everyone punishes everyone else for their transgressions. It's all part of a dark dream that propagates itself through this kind of pain and wishing it on others.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I hesitated to get up because what I wanted to talk about, what I've been having feelings or insights about, is something that I can't express, and I wanted to try to express it. And I think it went along with what you said about we're already dead. And that is, it just so doesn't make sense. But the light always wins. In the end, the light always wins. Like, oh, and I'm sorry, it's just so hard to put into words, but there's
You're still talking out there.
okay. I don't know, I could probably waste a whole lot of time up here. I know something is being formed in me. There's an understanding that wants to come out, but I don't get the whole thing. I just know, like I want to say light always wins, but light has already won, and I think that's why you say we've already passed, and we just don't know it, because there is no darkness.
Your intuition is good.
Yeah.
Why do you resist struggling?
Well, I'm here doing it. I'm trying.
Yes, you are, and you've been afforded this time and this work. That's what this school allows.
Yeah.
And everyone here, whether they support you or not, is here for that purpose as well. You can't see anything that won't help everybody else see something else.
Like the light is already won, and we are, like, to go with the talk, we're in a dream, fighting these revelations that we've been given to wake up, to live the life that was already won for us. I'm just going to let that develop. I can't say it any different than that. We're all looking for something that's already with us. It's like the fish in the water, right?
The more she moves her hands, it's like she's talking to her in a foreign language. The work of dying to the dream, come on, Barbara. The work of dying to the dream is dying to death. In dying to death, you'll find life. Dreams have no life, just the sensation of a experience. Real life is an endless discovery of an endless creation.
Good morning, my name is Barbie. Deborah, she was talking about the light, and I wasn't going to come up, but she sort of inspired a little something. As I was leaving today, this incredible bright shaft of light came through a window in our living room, and it just struck this plant. It was called a snake plant. And I had a most incredible feeling of love between that plant and the light. It was so beautiful. It was everything came alive in that moment. And it was so, I just realized that just so passing, but it was so intense at the same time. And I could see that the light is presence. And in that light, there is no past or future. There's just now. So, thanks.
Nice deep breath. I don't want to dream anymore. Make that your wish. It will be granted, but when it's granted, you have to accept what you've asked for. See you Wednesday, getting ready for our talks. Bye.